be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
Who is it?
In 1974, a 14-year-old girl in a small New Jersey town answered a job ad for babysitting. She got dressed, left home with hope in her heart, and never returned. What followed was a disturbing phone call, a decades-long silence, and a burning question that still grips the community. What happened to Margaret Ellen Fox? It was the morning of June 24th, 1974, in the quiet town of Burlington, New Jersey. Margaret Ellen Fox, a bright, dependable teen, left her home on High Street to catch a bus to nearby Mount Holly. She had answered a babysitting job ad placed in the local newspaper. The man on the phone said his name was John Marshall. He needed someone to watch his 5-year-old son, and that he would meet her at the corner of Mill and High Street. Margaret told her family she'd be home by the early afternoon. But the hours passed, and she never returned. By evening, her parents were frantic. Police were contacted, but Margaret was never seen again. The following are timelines of key facts. June 19th, 1974, Margaret's family reports she had spoken with a John Marshall about a babysitting job. He gave very vague directions and asked her not to tell her parents. On June 24th, 1974, Margaret leaves home and boards a bus to Mount Holly around 8:40 a.m. Multiple witnesses later confirmed seeing her at the bus stop and possibly getting off in Mount Holly near her meeting location. June 25th, 1974, the media coverage begins. During this time, Margaret's family receives a disturbing phone call from an unknown man saying, "If you want your daughter back alive, you will pay $10,000. No cops." The FBI, they managed to trace the call to a phone booth in a local supermarket parking lot, but by then, the caller was long gone. There are several working theories in Margaret's case, but no confirmed answers. The most prominent theory is that she was lured and abducted by the mysterious John Marshall. Authorities believe this name was an alias, and the job posting was simply a ruse. The caller had spoken with multiple girls about the very same ad. But unfortunately, in Margaret's case, she was the only one who agreed to meet. Despite an early flurry of activity, no suspect was ever publicly identified. Authorities released the ransom call recording years later, hoping someone would recognize the man's voice. That recording is chilling. The voice, calm but firm. 10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered sod. The odd phrasing led many to believe the caller might have local ties or a criminal background. There is also the possibility that Margaret never made it to her meeting point, that someone intercepted her earlier. But no one saw or reported a struggle. Nobody's ever been found, and that trail quickly went cold. Investigators believe Margaret was likely murdered, but without evidence, the case remains one of the FBI's oldest active missing child investigations. Over the years, there have been dozens of false leads, sightings in other states, tips from psychics, even a woman in Canada claiming to be Margaret in the 1980s. All of them were dead ends.
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
In 2019, the FBI re-released the ransom call to the public, remastered and digitized, along with a $25,000 reward. Despite national coverage, no new breakthroughs came through. Margaret's family once were hopeful, now weathered by decades of silence. They still cling to one thing. The truth is out there. Someone knows who placed that call. Someone knows what happened that summer morning in 1974. Margaret wasn't just a face on a poster. She was a child with dreams, a teenager in love with books, a young girl just trying to earn a little money helping a stranger. Her innocence was exploited, her trust used against her. To this day, her parents have left her room untouched. Her siblings remember her laugh, her name still spoken, even when answers have never come. Margaret Ellen Fox trusted a stranger, and in doing so, she vanished into a story still missing its ending. But her name, it still echoes, carried in that chilling voice on the lawn, and in the hearts of those still searching for her justice. April 26, 1980. That night began as an ordinary Saturday in Manchester, New Hampshire. At least that's what it was planned to be. 14-year-old Lorraine Ron. She had stayed behind while her mother Judith had went out of town to attend a tennis match in Florida with her boyfriend. However, when Judith returned home, sometime around 1:15 a.m., she was met with an unsettling discovery. The hallway, shrouded in an unusual darkness. The apartment door, unlocked.
Inside, there was a figure that laid in Lauren's bed. Initially relieved, Judith's relief had quickly turned to confusion and then alarm. That person that was in the bed, it was not Lauren, but it was one of her friends. The friend was disoriented and groggy, and she recounted that Lauren had been with her and a male friend earlier in the evening. But then Lauren had simply just vanished.
That evening, Lorraine had invited two friends to the apartment. The trio spent the night socializing, drinking wine coolers and hanging out and just talking. The male friend, he reportedly left through the back stairwell. Later, Lorraine's female friend fell asleep. And it was after this point that Lorraine vanished.
Significantly, Lauren, she had left behind her purse, money, and clothing. The apartment showed no signs of forced entry or even a struggle. The question of what happened within those apartment walls remains a chilling mystery.
In the aftermath of Lorraine's disappearance, the Ron family was plagued by a series of disturbing and inexplicable phone calls, multiple silent calls, received at odd hours. It created a sense of unease and dread.
A relative of Judith reported receiving a call from a girl asking for Mike. Despite being told it was the wrong number, the girl persisted, asking quietly, "Is Mike there?" Before hanging up, the relative was convinced the voice belonged to Lauren.
Judith later discovered long distance charges on her phone bill. The calls originated from motels in California, first in Santa Monica and then in Santa Ana. These motels were known to be associated with, for algorithm purposes, let's just say the dark side of the adult film industry and suspected trafficking activity. Judith traveled to California to investigate these leads. Her efforts, they yielded no trace of Lorene. The police were unable to determine the identity of the caller or the significance of these phone calls.
Here's some theories and unanswered questions. The lack of concrete evidence has fueled numerous theories, each as intriguing and unsettling as the last. Runaway turned trafficking victim? This theory suggests that Lauren may have left the apartment willingly, perhaps to meet someone, and was subsequently lured into a trafficking ring. Phone calls from California motels, they lend credence to this theory, aligning Lauren's reported fascination with California and her aspirations of becoming an actress.
Then there's a few known predator theories. The convenience store that Lorene was seen stocking wine coolers at earlier in the day. It's speculated that a person who was working there may have had a unusual liking for younger girls. And due to algorithm purposes, I won't elaborate on that, but it's also speculated that another man who lived only a few blocks away had this same strange liking and was arrested sometime later with certain things in his possession. And then there's the male friend who was with Lorene the night that she disappeared. He's never been publicly identified. Some believe he may have known more than he has admitted. Police did interview him but found no conclusive evidence. However, key questions do remain. Did Lorene leave with him? If so, why Lorene and not her friend? Was there an argument, an altercation? Did he really lock that back door? This same person unalived themselves in 2001 with a note that simply said, "I can't take this anymore," leaving speculation that maybe he was referring to Lorene Ron.
The Dr. Z hypothesis. A disturbing tip emerged, suggesting the involvement of a California physician, known only as Dr. Z, who was allegedly involved in the underground adult film industry and possibly the exploitation of young girls. This theory suggests Lauren may have been abducted and forced into this shadowy network. This theory remains speculative and unconfirmed, yet it is a persistent topic of discussion in online forums and true crime communities.
Then there's serial killer involvement. During this period, several serial killers were active along the East Coast and Midwest, including the possibility of a serial killer close to her neighborhood. While no direct link has ever been established, some investigators consider the possibility that Lorene may have been targeted by a passing predator.
The unsettling detail of the unscrewed light bulb. Adding a chilling layer to this already perplexing case is the detail of the unscrewed light bulb. When Judith returned home that night, she found the hallway outside her apartment unusually dark. It was later discovered that the light bulb had been deliberately loosened, not burned out. But there are some reports stating the entire floor was dark, meaning all the bulbs had been tampered with.
This seemingly minor detail raises several disturbing questions. Why was the light bulb or light bulbs unscrewed? Was it a deliberate attempt to conceal someone's presence in the hallway? Was someone lying in wait, either for Lorene or for someone else? Could the darkness have been intended to prevent Lorene from seeing her abductor? This detail, combined with the mysterious California phone calls, suggests a level of premeditation that adds a sinister dimension to Lorene's disappearance. Then again, with the light bulbs, why take all the time and effort? Every light bulb? Is it an unrelated issue? Could it have been a prank? Could Lorene and her friends have done that themselves? Who knows?
Despite extensive media coverage, including an appearance on Unsolved Mysteries, Lauren Ron's case remains unsolved. Her mother, Judith, never relinquished hope, firmly believing that her daughter was abducted and did not run away. Judith passed away in 2005 without ever knowing the truth about Lauren's fate.
Today, the disappearance of Lorene Ron continues to haunt the landscape of true crime. The case remains active with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Another stark reminder of the many unanswered questions and the ongoing search for truth.
Lawton, Oklahoma, a city built on military order and routine, yet beneath its surface lies a history of vanished women, unexplained murders, and eerie connections. At the center of this mystery is Lisa Farmer, a young 18-year-old wife and mother who had just started a new chapter of her life. Married for only 3 months, she had recently moved into a new home with her husband and 14-month-old baby. On the night of August 2nd, 1983, Lisa spent her first night alone in the house. Her husband was away on a military training exercise, leaving Lisa and her child alone. By the following afternoon, Lisa was gone, and the only witness to whatever had happened was a crying child left alone in an unlocked home. Lisa's case is one of several tragic stories in Lawton, a town that had already seen multiple women strangled in their homes or lured to their deaths under disturbingly similar circumstances. But could this horror extend beyond Lawton? Just a 2.5-hour drive away, in Muskogee, another woman vanished under eerily similar circumstances. Was this the work of a single predator roaming from city to city? Or was it all a terrible coincidence? The last confirmed sighting of Lisa was at 8:30 p.m. on August 2nd, 1983. A neighbor saw her through the kitchen window, going about her evening. Sometime between then and the morning of August the 3rd, Lisa vanished without a trace. Her 14-month-old child was left behind, and it wasn't until 3 p.m. when neighbors investigated the sound of continuous crying that they discovered something was terribly wrong. The back door was unlocked. Lisa's money, jewelry, ID, and keys were untouched. The only thing missing? Lisa herself in a single floral print nightgown. No note, no signs of forced entry, no struggle. Would a devoted mother simply walk away, leaving her baby alone in an unfamiliar house that she had only lived in for 3 days? Or had someone entered through that unlocked back door? A visitor Lisa either knew and trusted, or someone skilled at slipping in unseen. Lisa was not the first young woman in Lawton to mysteriously vanish or meet a violent end. Just 5 years before, in 1978, another 18-year-old, Gina Lynn Bowman, was found strangled near a water tower. Her own pair of jeans used as the murder weapon. That following year, in 1979, yet another 18-year-old mother, Lillian Jean Watts, was strangled in her own home. She too was married to a military man who was away at Fort Sill on a 3-day exercise. When he returned, he found his 1-year-old daughter alone in the front room, unharmed. Some of the similarities are chilling. Some of these young women were married with military husbands. Each left behind a helpless child, untouched. In early 1983, Cynthia Lynn Ross, 22, was also found strangled and dumped in a pond. She had last been seen with a man named Kenneth Wagstaff, a figure whose name seemed to surface again and again in cases involving women meeting violent ends. What makes Lisa's case even more chilling is the distance between Lawton and Muskogee, Oklahoma, just a 2.5-hour drive apart. Could the same predator who stalked Lawton's women have traveled to Muskogee as well? The similarities between Lisa's case and others in Lawton were already disturbing, but if Muskogee is connected, then the scale of this horror could be even larger than anyone realized. Did Lisa unknowingly fall into the path of a serial offender who was widening his hunting ground? Or was this a separate case, one lost in the shadows of Lawton's other unsolved crimes? Kenneth Wagstaff, a New York native with a criminal past, had been accused of attempted murder and assault before. Despite being charged in Cynthia's death, he walked free in 1984 after a jury acquitted him, leaving lingering questions about his true involvement in Lawton's pattern of tragedy. Strangely, Lisa Farmer had also been possibly seen with Wagstaff before she vanished. Could he have been responsible? Was Lisa another victim in a calculated string of attacks on women left vulnerable while their husbands were away? Or was her disappearance something even more sinister and unknown? Lisa's disappearance, along with the strangulations of Gina Bowman, Lillian Watts, and Cynthia Ross, suggest a chilling pattern in Lawton. Young women, mostly tied to Fort Sill, their husbands absent, leaving them alone. Each case eerily quiet, no struggle, no warning. Children left unharmed, as if the killer had a twisted sense of purpose. But if Muskogee is connected, it raises even more questions. Was Lisa's disappearance the first in a wider pattern? one that would eventually spread beyond Lawton. Was there a single predator traveling between cities, exploiting the vulnerabilities of military wives left alone? Or were multiple attackers using the same cruel method, making these cases seem connected when they weren't? One disturbing possibility remains. If Lisa was murdered, where is her body? Lisa A. Farmer remains missing. Her case, one of Lawton's most haunting disappearances, is still open, waiting for the truth to emerge. Lisa's child, now an adult, grew up without a mother. Her family never received answers. Who took Lisa that night? Was she the victim of a known predator like Wagstaff? Why did he always manage to walk free? Did he have connections protecting him? Was her fate tied to the other women of Lawton and possibly Muskegee? Or did she encounter a killer no one ever suspected? One thing is certain. Somewhere, someone knows the truth.
It was May 8th, 1981, a warm spring night in Oneida, New York. 18-year-old Tammy Jo Mahoney stood at a familiar intersection along Route 46, just outside the city limits. She was hitchhiking to meet her new boyfriend, but she never arrived. And by the next morning, Tammy was missing. She has never been seen again. Tammy Jo Mahoney was known for her kind heart and resilient spirit. Born in Long Island and raised in foster care, she'd overcome her share of hardships. At the time of her disappearance, she was living in nearby Hamilton and working to get her life on track. That spring, she had made plans, big plans. She had friends. She had someone she loved. And just like that, Tammy was gone. Witnesses later reported seeing Tammy get into a white van with several men near the intersections of Route 46 and Peterborough Road, which is also known as Route 31. That van would become the last confirmed sighting of Tammy Jo Mahoney. The following are timelines and theories. On May 8th, 1981, we do know Tammy was hitchhiking at a busy crossroads just outside Oneida. We also know a white van with multiple male occupants stopped, and Tammy got in. On May 9th, 1981, Tammy failed to arrive at her destinations, and it caused an alarm amongst her friends. Well, early investigations, despite reported sightings, there's no physical evidence. Her body was never found. Police have canvassed the area and questioned dozens, but no one has ever been charged. Moving into the 1900s on to the 2000s, well, years passed. Whispers continued to swirl around the Oneida Nation territory, where the van was allegedly headed. Rumors of a very violent SA and a group involvement persist. Some said Tammy was taken to a party. Others whispered about a field, a brutal act, and silence from those who knew the truth. In 2005, federal authorities announced a new push, naming persons of interest, but withholding identities. Then in 2011, a billboard was erected offering a $20,000 reward for information. However, still, no one came forward. From the 2015s up into the 2020s, the FBI, they've continued to request tips, naming Tammy's case as one of the region's most tragic unsolved crimes. Despite efforts, no remains have ever been located. Over 4 decades later, there's still plenty of lingering questions and speculations. Tammy's case is still shrouded in silence. Authorities believe she was abducted and murdered shortly after getting into that van. Some of the individuals believed to be involved are still alive. Others have since passed away. But what has kept the truth buried all these years? Fear? Loyalty? Or just maybe something darker? Despite extensive searches and hundreds of interviews, no arrests have ever been made. Some investigators believe that Tammy's body is buried somewhere on the Oneida Nation land. Others suggest she may have been disposed of in a remote area. But without a confession or discovery of her remains, Tammy's fate remains unknown. Tammy Jo Mahoney was just 18 years old, a daughter, a friend, a young woman with hopes in her heart. Her family and the people of Oneida, they are still remembering her. Her photograph remains on the FBI posters. Her name echoes in articles and podcasts and billboards that plead for answers. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened. And after all these years, Tammy's story is still waiting for its ending.
If you found this story haunting, share it. Maybe the right pair of eyes or ears will see it, and a mystery can be solved.